What's going on to all my Witcher fans out there? Welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again with a brand new Netflix review, and today we are discussing Season 2 of The Witcher, which premiered on Netflix this past weekend. Finally got a chance to sit down and watch in its entirety, and I'm so excited to break down this new season. We're talking pros, cons, and I'm going to share with you all my thoughts and predictions based on that 8th episode of what we can expect in the future in this review. But before we break it all down, quick call to action. Check me out on all my other social media accounts. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. And as you can see on the screen now, if you enjoyed this review, make sure to like and share the review, but also leave your thoughts in the comments. I want to discuss everything with you all about this second season, your favorite episode, your favorite characters, your favorite arc in the season. What were some things that didn't work for you all? And of course, share your thoughts and theories of what you hope to see in a season 3 and maybe some spin-offs in the future for this Netflix series. So the way I want to handle this review, I'm going to spend the first half of this video just non-spoilers, just pros, cons, talking about if it's worth checking out. And in the second half, we're going to dive into a little bit of a spoiler discussion about my thoughts and my theories. So I'm going to leave all the time codes and descriptions and different topics that we'll tackle in this video in the description below. So first and foremost, I am so happy to be back in this world. I reviewed the first season on this channel back in 2019. I was a big fan of the first season and had its issues, especially when it comes to the structure and how they told the story. But I fell in love with these characters. It was my first time being introduced to The Witcher in regards to seeing it on the small screen in the form of Netflix. Didn't play the games, didn't read the book, but I became a big fan after that season 1. So I was just really excited for this new season, and I want to talk about the pros of this latest season, which first and foremost, the biggest thing I have to say is what an improvement from season 1 to 2. And this is coming from someone that actually enjoys season 1. But structurally speaking, the acting, the storytelling, the emotions, the monsters, the reveals, there's just so much goodness in the second season. And again, this is no disrespect to the first season, but it was just such a more superior storytelling, such a more well thought out season. And I just really love season 2. But let's get into my reasons why I love season 2, starting off with the characters and starting off with one of my favorite actors in Hollywood is Henry Cavill. I am, if you all know me, I'm a DC fan, and he is my personal favorite Superman. I want to see him as the next James Bond, but putting my fandom aside of Henry Cavill, he is Geralt. He is literally embodying this role. He has it's the character growth, man. I really enjoyed how when we first, again, from someone that hasn't read the novels, that hasn't played the video games, meeting Geralt in season 1, knowing that the Witchers don't have emotion, finding about the surprise law of the child and him, going on the journey to find Ciri and obviously falling in love with Yennefer in season 1. But in this season in particular, it's the stuff that he's going through in the season to do anything and everything to protect Ciri in this season and essentially being the father that she never had. So I love the journey that they go on, which I'm going to talk about Ciri. You talk about a growth from season 1 to 2, but just again, going back to Geralt, man, it's the emotional beast that Henry plays in a role. He completely disappears in this role. I don't see Henry Cavill, and that's a good thing. Like, I really feel like he's this character. It's the emotional beats. It's the action, of course. He's such a badass, and it's just the arc that you see him going through in this show, whether it be us introducing us to new Witchers, to other Witchers, seeing where Geralt comes from and seeing his, mentor and kind of a father figure from him in Vesemir, and just so much growth in this character. I'm just, again, Henry Cavill, you're fantastic. I can't wait to see him continue to bring other, maybe lesser known IPs to the big screen in the form of Highlander. I am just so excited for that series. Excited for him to be back as Superman one day, but neither here nor there, man. Geralt, Henry Cavill was perfect in this season in my personal opinion, but I mentioned his relationship with Ciri. Now, I didn't necessarily I didn't dislike Ciri in season 1. I just feel like the story didn't really give her that much to do. She was constantly on the run. She was more of a plot device than she was a character, at least for me in season 1. This season expands on the character so much. She has so much more to do. Number one, her journey on the road to figuring out what's going on with her, to her being wanting to fend for herself in the season, maybe wanting to be something similar to a Witcher, which I won't give away here in this part of the video. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but it's just her journey, man. And just seeing, I felt so bad for her because everyone wants to take advantage of her for their personal gains, and I just thought that her progression of the character, the acting chops, the emotional beats, beats, the action beats. Again, what I love about Ciri in this season is she doesn't just want to stand by and just have Geralt protect her. She wants to fend for herself and become her own person, and I love the stuff that we get with her in this season. Like I said, it wasn't that I hated her in season 1, I just didn't feel like there was much to do with her, and the show just literally just used her as one plot device, but she becomes a more fleshed out character in this season, and she's a badass. I'll just say that in this season. But a character that was almost kind of in the same vein for me in season 1, as far as like, I appreciated the acting and I appreciate the nuance and what they were trying to do with Yennefer, but she didn't really like completely work for me in season 1. But very similar to Ciri in this season, she gets a glow up too. I love the stuff with Yennefer in season 2, from her losing something very personal to her in this season, seeing her journey working with people you wouldn't think that she would work with, and she has such a dilemma to deal with in the season regarding certain things that she learns on her path. Again, losing something very personal and very, you know, her things that make her who she is. I'll just leave it at that. And regaining who her is and her self-identity, her kind of self-journey in this season. And again, there are moments where Yennefer is making some really bad and tough decisions, but it's those decisions that gets her to the end point, and just seeing her growth and her progression in her development in season 2 was something that really impressed me. But one of the things that also impressed me in some character developments was characters that I didn't really care for in season 1, like at all, starting with Fringilla and Cahir. Now, I won't get into their dynamic in season 2, but I'll just say this. Starting off with Fringilla, she was a character that I did not care for in season 1, but man, did she change on me in season 2. There's a particular scene kind of in the halfway point of the season which was very violent, very, very gruesome. I'll just kind of leave it at that. But seeing her kind of power trip that she's on this season, and also tying that into Cahir's character, who goes on his own journey in this season as the knight, as we know from season 1. They give him a lot more to do in the season, and just seeing their power dynamic of the pendulum of who's in control, who's not in control, who's handling this situation with the elves. I just love the growth that we get with those characters. In particular, like I said, Fringilla, who was not on my good character list season 1, she really stepped up, and the actress was fantastic in this season. As well as I think of a character like Triss. I thought Triss had a lot to do in this season, and again, another example of a character that was just kind of like, yeah, you know, they were okay in season 1, but they gave her a lot more to do, and the acting was phenomenal. So I can't stress enough, from the characters that we met in season 1, whether it be, like I said, for me, a Ciri, a Yennefer, Fringilla, a Cahir, I feel like all those characters were just, they blossomed. They were able to kind of get more to do, have that growth, have that progression, and really have some good solid arcs. And again, you put the ice on the cake, Geralt, Henry Cavill was absolutely fantastic. But I can't leave out, as far as performances and characters, the newcomers in season 2 were fantastic. There were so many new characters. There's some that I won't reveal because it'll be a spoiler, but I think of a character like Vesemir, who is the mentor of Geralt and the leader of the Witchers. I love the stuff that we get with him. I know that there was a prequel animated show on The Witcher that I might watch now, because I'm a big fan of that character, and I just love the stuff that he goes through, that he wants to protect what's his, which is the Witchers, and carrying on their legacy and finding new ways to maybe do that in this season, which was fantastic. And then the leader of the elves, the elf sorcerer, I believe her name was Francesca. I thought that her, first off, the implementing the elf storyline this season, and just seeing how the elves were treated amongst the other people, how they're like secondhand class, and just how people look at elves. And I just love the stuff that we got there. And then there's a couple new villains, I'll just say, that we get in this season, and I don't want to spoil that. I know the book readers and the video game characters, or the video game players, will love to see in this season. So from, again, the old characters and new characters, I just felt like the acting was just top notch, the performances were great, and the character arcs really felt genuine, they felt earned, and I just love the growth of what we're getting in this show with all those characters. So other things that kind of stand to mind, I love the monster designs, which we got from season 1, but we get a little bit more monsters in this particular season, and a lot more. It's not as practical effects as season 1, but we do get some really cool CGI characters. But there is a practical monster in episode 1, which I'll talk about, my favorite episode here in a second, that was just fantastic to look at. I love the story and the narrative without spoiling anything. Again, this journey, there's there's 3 main stories going on. Geralt and Ciri making their way to his home to keep her safe, but also learning about her powers. Yennefer going on her journey, and of course we have all the different people trying to find Ciri for their own personal gain. So I love the themes of sacrifice, family, family, redemption, and obviously there's pain and love and jealousy and all fear and all that different stuff that this show really kind of shines a light on. But again, just the personal stakes that was going on this season was fantastic. But another thing that I definitely want to give props to, I mentioned it in my season 1 review. I didn't like the storytelling of season 1, how it was like all over the place as far as timelines. We're in flashback form, we're in the current timelines, and it took so long to kind of get those timelines on the same track. This season doesn't do that. We're just in one main storyline as we go along the journey, and I felt it felt more fleshed out and just felt more cohesive than season 1 in my personal opinion. And then also too, I'm a big fan of Game of Thrones, and I'm not saying that The Witcher is Game of Thrones, but it has some Game of Thrones type of plots that you would see in that show, which in particularly the politics involved in The Witcher is so well developed. The world building, the different worlds and not worlds, but the different kind of continents that we go to is just I just love that stuff about fantasy and adventure. And I thought the politics in this show, in this particular season, was fantastic, which brings me to favorite episodes of this season, which great episodes throughout. There are some pacing issues that I'll talk about here in a second, but my favorite episode in this new season was episode 1, which was titled A Gain of Truth. It's kind of a play on Beauty and the Beast, and it involves a monster and a vampire. I'll just kind of leave it at that, but that story was so incredible, which brings me to just what I loved about these episodes. They were obviously connecting to one episode, ties to the next, and continues to build a story, but they were also like individually speaking, they were like individual cinematic episodes with each one felt like its own little personal story, own little personal movie, and I love the cinematic value and the production that each episode have to give. So whether it be balancing the stories from one episode to the next while still building the seeds for future seasons, I just thought that this season again was just really well put together and just a fantastic season of The Witcher. But it doesn't come without its flaws. Some things that do come to mind in regards to, I mentioned there's a little bit of pacing issues. For me, the middle half of the season felt a little bit off in pacing and in consistent storytelling. It involves, I mentioned that I love, Francesca and the elves and how they implement their story, but at points whenever we kind of went away from what's going on with Geralt and Ciri and Yennefer, whenever we went to the elves, that story took a little bit to really kind of pick up its momentum from my personal taste, but eventually it did stick its landing. Also kind of involving the Fringilla story. Like I said, it took a while to pick up, but once she does a certain thing and once something happens to Francesca and the elves, it really kind of hits the emotional beats and you're like, oh, okay, I see where they're going and I see where this can go in a future season, which also brings me to, I won't say how, but I really enjoyed the arc that we got with Yennefer, but she does have a particular team up with the character Cahir, and I'll just leave it at that. There is something that they do together, and I wish the show would have maybe gave us more. I thought it was going to go in one direction. Who knows what season 3 or season 4 can lead with those two characters, especially on the journey that they go on this season. But I was hoping that we got a little bit more with them because I was very intrigued with their dynamic. Because as you all know from season 1, Yennefer, fought against his side, so it was really interesting to see those two. I won't say they work together per se, but they do have a journey they go on together, and I'll just kind of leave it at that. So I wish there was a little bit more of those two characters. I found their dynamic to be very interesting. I will say, and this is just me being selfish because I love the Witchers and the mythology and the lore of those characters, but I wish that we would have gotten more depth with some of those other Witchers that we do meet in this new season. I felt Vesemir was a great character, but I wish we would have spent a little bit more time with the Witchers and kind of get a little bit more backstory for them. And then lastly, as far as my criticism, I wanted more. And I'm being funny there. I just love this show so much. I just wanted more episodes. I didn't want the show to end because it was just such a great season. So before I give you my overall thoughts of this season, let you know if it's worth checking out. If you haven't already, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Overall, like I said, for me personally, season 2 is a way more superior season than season 1, and that's not a knock on season 1. It's a credit to the writers. It was a stronger story, a better narrative. It was structured better. The performances were elevated. The monsters were great. The emotions were there. The stakes were high. The magic was there. The reveals were fantastic. And the finale, to me, was way more better than the finale of season 1, episode 8. So I have my criticisms that I mentioned here, but if you are a fan of season 1, I think you're going to love season 2. And I can't speak for the book readers and video game players, but I would think that they would appreciate the nuances and the performances. And I know there's a ton of Easter eggs that even me not knowing those books and novels just kind of reading up on, I'm like, oh, I can imagine if I was reading the book or playing the video games, that would have been a great nod, especially some characters in a group of characters, I'll just say that they introduce in this season that makes me excited for the future season. So I love this second season. It is not perfect, but man, it just was so entertaining. It was such a well worth binge. I watched it over a span of 2 days. Obviously, Spider-Man was out this weekend, and I had other things, so I wish I could have got this video out a little bit earlier, but neither here nor there. I'm so glad I watched season 2, and I can't recommend it enough. So that's my non-spoiler portion of this video. I want to kind of dive deeper into like a little bit of a spoiler discussion, more so than like a breakdown of certain events, but I will say, I mentioned in my non-spoiler review, and this is something I love, Yennefer losing her power was such a good character arc and such a great decision for that character, because it ties into the finale, the sacrifice that she makes after betraying Geralt and Ciri. I love that moment with her, of her sacrifice herself, giving the blood to the witch for she can consume her and use her as the vessel, and obviously she was able to make her way out after they run across the wild hunt, which we'll talk about here in a second. But I love that Yennefer didn't have her power. She had to rely on her heart, her intuition, her as a person, and yes, she made some bad decisions, but I love the arc that we get with her. So I thought her losing her power was such a great, powerful, impactful moment for that character. But let's talk about the nitty gritty. Episode 8, just kind of giving you all my thoughts and predictions of what I hope to see in season 3. First and foremost, we learned that Ciri is possessed with the elder blood, and that everyone obviously wants her now, but more particularly, and I remember seeing this when I worked at Best Buy, the video game The Wild Hunt, and I love the visual design of those characters, and I assume that's going to be the big bad for season 3. They're going to want to get her. Obviously the Brotherhood's out for her, obviously the elves are going to be looking for her, and of course she wants to be a witcher. So when it comes to season 3, and obviously the big kind of mic drop of the moment was we find out that, you know, her dad is still alive, and that's how, you know, Nidgard, that's how they knew about her powers, all that stuff. So I love that reveal that her dad's not alive, and I love the prospect of a season 3. Who is Ciri gonna choose? Is she gonna choose her new dad in the form of Geralt and everything that he's taught her and want to continue to be on this path of being a witcher? Or is she gonna go with her biological father and join the dark side? That's kind of the dilemma at hand for that character, and I can't wait to see all of the development. But again, going back to the Wild Hunt and the main witch and how the witchers thought that they consumed her and kind of captured her, that stuff just gets me so excited, because the Wild Hunt, again, I don't know much about the characters, but the design of them on the horses and the crown and the fire looks like demons out of hell. That gets me very excited. And again, I cannot wait to see what she decides to do in regards to going with her, you know, surrogate dad and Geralt, or going with her blood dad. And also that mysterious character that the fire mage had. I wonder who is that mysterious character, and I can't wait to get the reveals from that. So again, whether it was the reveal of Yennefer losing her power, you know, Ciri having the Elder's blood and the Wild Hunt, and obviously that decision she has to make, and of course seeing Geralt protecting her against monsters and elves and humans and all that stuff will be just a fantastic season 3. I know that we got at the end of the season, we have the teaser or the trailer for the Blood Origin, which I believe takes place tens of thousands of years before this story here, and I believe it kind of ties into, okay, how did the elves and the humans work together, and this blood oath, and probably the elder's blood, and tied into the Wild Hunt. So I'm gonna watch that show. It has Michelle Yeoh, who I'm a big fan of, and it looked pretty cool. So I'm excited for season 3. I love season 2. Let me know again, what were some of your favorite moments, you know, since we're talking spoilers now, your thoughts on the Wild Hunt and how they're gonna play into season 3. Her father, you know, Ciri's dad being alive, and of course all the stuff that you hope to see with other characters being involved in the future seasons. Let's talk about that in the comments. If you stuck around to this point in the video, I appreciate every single one of you all. Before you leave, make sure, if you haven't already, to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell. That way you don't miss any of my future reviews. If you enjoyed this review, again, make sure to like it and share it. Thank you all for watching it. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you're staying safe. As you can see on the screen now, subscribe to my channel, check out my other content. We'll catch you on the next one.